Well, hello everybody. Good evening or good early evening, I suppose. And welcome along to Live at 5 here on the Rangers Rabble Podcast, part of the Rabble Network and, of course, the Talk Sport Fan Network as well. Joining me this evening to have a quick conversation about all things Rangers and last night's Premier Sports coverage. I have Alan Brown. Alan, how are we?
I'm not too bad. Quite tired after a long night last night, but nice to be in and chilling because quite honestly, it's better if I've been in the house, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm literally just back in the door for work. So all you people moaning about us being late, it's not actually because of me, because I was in the studio before 5 o'clock. It's Martin's fault because he was bragging too much about the fact that he'd beat Celtic 4-1 on Football Manager and decided to provide us with the proof that he had done it. So if you want to blame somebody for being late, JD, blame Martin. He's always the safe bet in these kind of situations. Evening Sniper. Evening, everyone else who is joining us. Some quick housekeeping to take care of. Thanks very much to GDP Navy, who's became a YouTube member. Much appreciated. Thanking you indeed. And Daniel Mervyn as well, who's also just became a new member as well. So thanks very much indeed for joining us. You'll get plenty of good content. That is for sure. All your match day coverage and everything as well. So well worth the $1.99 sign-in fee, in my opinion. Right. And yes, as Sniper says, if you are new to the channel, then please do become a member. You can hit the join button. It does start from $1.99. There are multiple tiers. Whichever one you want to go to is absolutely fine. We always appreciate the support greatly because, well, quite frankly, without it, there is no Rabble. So, yes, if you want to, by all means, you get plenty of content. If you're a wrestling fan as well, there's wrestling content for the members. You can take part in 2K25 shows with Hamish. Plenty of good stuff. You've got the Rabble reports as well. Thompson Tuesdays, we have very own ENT, and loads more that I could sit here and go about all day. However, this is not an advertisement show, Alan. We are here to have a chat about last night. Martin is informing me we're also now live on Patreon as well. So hello to everyone who's joining us on Patreon. Now that we've got all the introductions dealt with and housekeeping sorted, let's talk about last night, shall we? The title of this show.
We managed to go 3.5 minutes before really talking about it, so I think we've started very, very well, Connor.
We have done well. We've managed to avoid the issue for a good time there. But the title of this show, as done by Martin, of course, is that Premier Sports need to have a word with Michael, of course, meaning everybody's favourite pundit in Scottish football, Michael Stewart. We'll go over the incidents in isolation, Alan, because I think that's the best way of doing it. But overall, for me, if you look at the first major incident that Michael Stewart was screaming and hollering about and demanding penalty kicks for, the Fernandes handball. Now, two things about that for me. Number one is, see if Michael Stewart's genuine opinion is he thinks that's a handball. Not a problem. Not a problem, by the way, because do you know what? He's entitled to his opinion. And Premier Sports are not the BBC, Alan, so they do not have to be impartial in their commentary. They don't. There's no obligation on them to do that, other than it would cost them viewers if they didn't. However, when you have seen Michael Stewart this season and in recent weeks moan and complain every other time a penalty kick is given for a handball, ones that are more of a handball than what we've seen last night, ones that are less of one than we've seen last night, how can you possibly not think that he is only getting as animated about that because it's Rangers? Because at the end of the day, for me, if that was in the Dundee United box and it was Ferry handballs, I don't think he's scheming for that. Oh, and by the way, just as an aside to that, Jim Goodwin basically done him last night when he came out and spoke after the game because he had no complaints at all with that decision. In fact, he said if it went against his defender, he would not be a happy man, Alan.
Which was very, very fair of him to come out, because it would have been very easy for him to come and complain, about a big decision going against his team, and that could have made all the difference in the game, so on and so forth. But very, very similar to the incident last week in another game. Where there's lots of talk about where a penalty should be given for a very similar handball. I'd be looking for it, but I don't think VAR's going to get involved because that's not what you define a clear and obvious error. The referee's not going to obstruct the viewing that. He's obviously seen enough to think that there's no intention behind it. There's no advantage gained, and that's why it's not been given. I think yes, we've absolutely got away with one because I would be wanting it, but I can totally understand why it's not been given. As for Michael Stewart, his histrionics are laughable, but it is panelling season, so Michael Stewart has come out of the woodwork again just at the right time.
Yeah, and listen, some people agreeing with this, some disagreeing. That's the nature of the beast. And as I say, Scottish football in general is all about opinions, right? And the one thing I'll never do, regardless of the fact that I vehemently disagree with Michael Stewart on 99.9% of things he says, occasionally he does say something in games that don't involve Rangers or Celtic, where he can be a bit more impartial. That you think, yeah, he's probably right there. But very rarely does that. Yeah, well, exactly. So I'm not having a go at him for having an opinion because he's entitled to it, as I said. But Kelvin Wilson saying nothing to do with Michael Stewart going against Rangers. He's just a very poor commentator and very poor pundit. Now, I absolutely agree with the second part of that, Kevin. I think you're 100% right. He is a very poor commentator and a very poor pundit. But the problem, not the problem, for me, I disagree with the notion, Alan, that it's nothing to do with him going against Rangers because when it comes to, because you're right, he's poor in general, but there's a noticeable difference in him when he's commentating on Rangers games. Not just Rangers, by the way. I will just point this out. The two teams he's the worst for, or the three that he's really the worst for, if you take Celtic out the equation when he's cheerleading, the three he's the worst for are Rangers, Hibs and Hearts. Rangers, because he's got a vendetta against Rangers. He's had problems with us for many years. Goes back to his childhood when he was, rejected as a youth, which you can debate whether that was right or wrong. It then goes back, to his rant in the BBC that got him suspended when he was making all sorts of unfounded accusations about Alfredo Morelos apparently lying about racism and the club planting stories, which, is hell of accusations to be making in the BBC. Rightly, he was suspended, but they brought him back. So it goes back to all of that and the whole other history that we know about. So there is a predisposition there, Alan. Let's not kid ourselves like there isn't for him to dislike Rangers. And then when it comes to Hearts and Hibs, his biggest problem there, Alan, is he can't decide which one he wants to support because he hated Hearts when Craig Levein was in charge because he hates Craig Levein. But now the Hearts are doing well, he still wants to cheer for him because he used to play for them. So now he's a Hearts man. But I used to play for Hibs as well, and I quite like them. Those are, in my opinion, those types of things with Hearts and Hibs and then us are separate type of issues than the main one of them just being a poor commentator.
Oh, definitely, and I think it's very hard to take Michael Stewart seriously, but I also think people end up spending a lot more time talking about Michael Stewart than he really deserves. I think the biggest issue we have, and you can apply it to commentators, you can apply it to referees, you just want a bit of consistency. No looking for people to give any preferential treatment, no looking for any special treatment, but for the love of God, just be consistent. And I've no problem with pundits being open and honest about who they support and having a leaning towards them, even in their commentary and punditry. I think there's an honesty and an integrity to that. But the wild sort of swings, depending on what team it is it's embarrassing. Watching, it's absolutely embarrassing. Yeah,
and here's a question coming in for Fergie before we talk about our penalty incident, which was another source of consternation for him. And there's a couple of points I want to bring up at the start as well, and I will do. But Fergie saying here, Raven, why doesn't Rangers ban him from our gantry as they did Lennon and Sutton?
It doesn't deserve it, all right?
I agree 100% with you there, Alan. I also think, let's be honest about it, you kind of have to be bigger than that because you're right. For a while, Lennon and Sutton were, but most of that, in fairness, when it came to Sutton in particular, but Lennon as well, was more of safety concerns than not necessarily for them, but in general with the stadium, because obviously it's powder keg situations. These guys, particularly Sutton, is the biggest wind-up merchant going. There were some reasons to do it other than just we don't like these guys. But I also think, does it do anything to help? Because you can ban him for the gantry, Alan, but he's still going to commentate about Rangers. The BBC still employ him, so he'll still talk about him in a studio. He'll still talk about us in a Premier Sports studio. Banning him, for me, would just give him more fuel.
100%. And as I say, he really doesn't deserve the notoriety of us making him a martyr to the cause. So I think we spend too much time talking about that idiot. So, I think we better talking about the game. There's obviously the incidents that we're talking about and the midst they're talking about. But we've also got what we can actually look at and take as positives from the game.
Yeah, absolutely. JDC and Premier are stupid using Michael Stewart for a match. Puts off hundreds of thousands of supporters from wanting to pay money to watch it. Yeah, you could argue a case for that. I mean, if there's an option to watch it on Rangers TV instead of Premier, then you will. I think that even though some people don't like Tom Miller's commentary, but for very vastly different reasons, it's not anything to do with anything anti-Rangers, because he obviously loves the club, but I think some people just, he's not their cup of tea, and that's fine. AJ saying that the Livingston one was last night. No, I agree. Yeah, and we called it out on the show. We said it. Myself, Martin, were on that show. I think Ian was on it as well. Livingston was 100% a penalty, and it's a disgrace that VAR didn't look at that. I mean, I'm man enough. We're all big enough to admit that. That was a shocker, and I would expect that Willie Collum will come out and say as much when he does his show. It's and here we go. This is what I want to bring up for Neil, because it's a very good point. Absolutely corner. Goodwin had no complaints. It was a foul in the box all day long. Stewart needs reprimanded for his commentary and biased behaviour. It was a disgrace, and that takes us exactly to where I wanted to go. Our penalty kick, Alan, because the guys later on, I will say, we're not going to go too far into the meat and bones of the game. We'll talk about some of the contentious decisions and the general picture, but the guys are back with a public show live tonight at 7:30 p.m. Martin will be back in the hot seat for that, so they'll go more in depth on the game last night, and they'll give you a more of a rundown of it. But in terms of our penalty, again, and I have to say, full credit to Jim Goodwin. I said this last night on our WhatsApp. He was incredibly honest, because I genuinely thought, Alan, Jim Goodwin's going to come out here and going to rant. He's going to be furious. His team has just been cost 2 points at the end by a penalty kick. That it happens seconds. I mean, literally, if that penalty doesn't happen, David Dickinson has got the whistle in his mouth, ready to blow for full time. That's how late on it is, and I thought he's going to be furious because he looked it. But turns out we read him wrong, because he was obviously furious for different reasons. He was furious that they had given the penalty away, not that it was given, because he came out and he said, look, it's unlucky on Ferry. He's genuinely made an attempt to get the ball, which we all agree with. But Max Aarons has just been too quick for him and got there first. And whilst, in his opinion, there wasn't a lot of contact, and I think he's right, there wasn't. It's enough. And in that situation, he said it. As a manager, you'd be screaming for that if it was at the other end, and you almost always expect the ref to point to the spot there. And for me, I thought, you know what? I can't argue with that, because that is pretty much what my assessment of it would have been as well.
Yeah, there's not really much different I can say about that. Credit a manager coming out and being honest and humble about that. As I say, that's went against him a couple of decisions, but he's actually come out and agreed with him, and that shows a lot of integrity and dignity. Jim Goodwin is obviously passionate about doing the best he can for his team, but the bar I always look at for that penalty incident, if that was anywhere else on the park, it's a free kick. So why would it be contentious for a foul to be given for that challenge in the box? Absolutely, the fullbacks made a genuine attempt to go and beat Max Aarons to the ball, win the ball. There's no malice in the challenge. There's no sort of deliberate foul play. Aarons has simply got to the ball in front of him. There go, contact's made with Max Aarons, and it's a penalty. I think the referee had a great view. He was about 2 yards away from it. No doubt. They didn't seem to check it for long on VAR. There's clearly nothing to overturn. And just a case, clear the box, let Barami step up and cap off a pretty decent performance from him with a deserved goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, again, Michael Stewart was saying that, never ever a penalty. In his opinion, he was shown multiple angles of it. He had decided, Alan, before he'd even seen a replay, that it wasn't a penalty for him. I mean, literally, the minute Aaron's hit the ground and the penalty was given, that's never a penalty, never a penalty. And then he sees multiple replays, slow-mo replays as well. He's like, I don't even think there's any contact there at all, or if there is, it's minimal. Now, here's my issue with that. If there's minimal contact, which there was, at full pace like that, Max Aarons, like every professional football player, is going to go down. Charlie Mulgrew said this. I mean, again, ex-Celtic player, ex-Dundee United player, ex-Aberdeen player, so has absolutely no reason whatsoever to defend Rangers. But he himself said as well, and why would, if Max Aarons stays on his feet there, then the penalty kick wouldn't be given, and, you'd be fuming at him. And your team for doing that, and I think that's right. It's minimal contact, yes, but he does catch the bottom of his boot, and ultimately you've got to take what you can get when you can get it. Because as we've seen, Alan, in the League Cup semi-final, big decisions go against you as well. So when you get one that isn't that contentious, that most people would say, aye, you'd expect a penalty to be given, even if it's maybe not 100%. There, then you take it.
Absolutely, and I think on a balance at 90 minutes, the very least Rangers deserved was a point. So I think it would have been criminal if had we come back down the road with absolutely nothing. But that'll then go on to talk about why we're so wasteful at both ends of the park. There's lots you can dig into the performance and the repeated things you see week in, week out from this Rangers team, and habits that you've seen from Rangers teams the last few years. These are not things that are going to change overnight. These are not sort of traits and instructions that are suddenly going to disappear. I just hope that Danny Rule casts enough an eye over it to see what's not working and starts making changes.
Hopefully, absolutely. I was saying, did the same with penalty against Celtic straight away, never a pen, then just refused to back down, even though everyone organically said it was a pen. Well, there you go. But we'll move on to Michael Stewart, because quite frankly, I mean, I could sit here all day and just rag on him, but he doesn't deserve any more expulsion of air from our lungs, quite frankly. The man is useless, but television networks and broadcasters and radio stations want to keep employing him. And according to Shona, some Rangers podcasts want to have him on as a guest. I can safely speak for Martin when I say this, that Michael Stewart would never be welcomed on the Rangers Rabble podcast. Frankly, he couldn't handle the scrutiny that he would receive here, let's be honest about it. In terms of the overall picture, Alan, you said there on the game, and again, frustrations, obviously, because it's a game that we've not won. And, there were frustrations in our group chat, loads of conversations about different things. I think there's some criticism being levied at the manager now that, for me, whilst there's things you can criticise about him, I think some stuff that I've seen last night, I felt was a bit harsh. But I get it, I understand it, totally 100% understand. For example, he does have to be quicker with the substitutions, Alan. We went 2-1 down, and it took him nearly 20 minutes after that to make the first change. He can't wait that long. And I know some people are going to say to me, and they'd be right to, but Connor, he's going to look back at his bench and think, who have I got? And I understand that. But if you're going to make the change at your mate, or you've got Finlay Curtis there, for example, that you can roll the dice and give him a run out, these are things he's got. I think he's just got to do a bit better. Just changing the game quicker.
Yeah. I think last night he should have. I think Danny Royle's proven, but he's more prepared to make early changes. I can't remember if he's made any first half subs. Something in the back of my mind makes me think that he has. He certainly made multiple changes at half time on more than one occasion. So he's certainly more prepared to do it. I do wonder the value of some of those changes. I really don't see. Listen, I'm quite consistent in my opinion on Diamandi, but I really don't see what he's done to merit getting back on the park and getting on ahead of some of the other guys like Lionel Cameron, who I can't understand why he's just not getting minutes. Curtis, yeah, I think we'd all have liked to see him on, but both Barami and Gassama were looking a threat. You know, I can understand why he's not taking either of those guys off. It's a tough one. You want Curtis on, but if the guys out wide are looking threatening, then I can understand him staying on. For me, he coming on for Danilo was an obvious one. Danilo wasn't really in the game. And if we're going to continue to play more direct and play long balls, then I have to play Jamiti, who will win far, far more headers than either Miovski or Danilo will. So I can understand the subs. I would have very much liked to see us make changes when we were still 1-1, you know, and go and get more legs and more energy in the park. But it was probably the best we've played in weeks. And I can probably understand them being a wee bit hesitant to change it last night.
Yeah, and listen, I think it's a sentiment echoed by a few, and I get it, you know, I absolutely get it. I will just say, because Martin's pointed it out to me, so, you know, I'll mention it. Just slightly reminder is when we were talking about Michael Stewart there, just as I was finishing that conversation, Jam 2001 on Patreon, he said that, he says, I say get him on, meaning Michael Stewart, and let us abuse him in the comments. Well, yeah, you know, as long as we keep it somewhat clean. But yeah, I mean, just to mention that because we do obviously value people who are watching on Patreon. It's just that the comments don't necessarily ping up on my YouTube screen, obviously, but Martin can see them, so ideal. I mean, yeah, the thing is, you know, when you're talking about like Chamiti there, right, coming on, and Danilo not being in the game, but Chamiti misses an absolute, you know, beauty of a chance with that header. He's got to do far, far better with now. So did Danilo. Let's not kid ourselves. He's got to do better with a cutback for Gassama, because Gassama done quite well on a rebound to keep it in and get it cut back to him. And I think, you know, it might go some way towards Odd Bob's question about are we more confident, less confident, or unchanged for the game against Celtic for the game against Celtic in a few weeks. Now Martin and even Nunzi are going. Now see, the thing is, right, the two things I think interchange. I think our performances would tell you were so inconsistent, and last night we did look better than we did against Falkirk. We looked more confident in the middle of the park. I thought Barami had a really good game last night, actually. I thought he'd done well. Yeah, he had a couple of wayward passes and sloppy moments, but, you know, there was a couple of times when he did give it away and he chased it back to win the ball back as well and didn't give up on it, which I like. So I like what I've seen for him. I think Gassama, and I will die on this hill, there's a player in Gassama. There really is. See if we can get a better squad around him, that, you know, he can be functioning with better players. That will help him improve, because it's his end product, really, more than anything else. He does go down a bit easily sometimes, which is a massive frustration, but his end product just needs to be better, because he's got that pace, he can keep the ball in, he can take a man on, just that final ball. But my issue is, Alan, I think we're confident-ish with the midfield most of the time, but as a fan base, we have zero confidence in our strikers or our defenders. Doesn't matter that Martin O'Neill's left Celtic now and Wilfred Nunzi's in the door. For me, as a fan base, I don't think we will feel confident at all going into that game because of those reasons.
I'll actually go kind of against that opinion and say that the reason we're not confident in the strikers and the defence is because the midfield isn't working. You know, I was talking on Thompson Tuesdays a couple of nights ago. The midfield's not working, it's not supporting the back line and protecting the back line, and it's not creating chances for the forwards. We had nearly 30 shots in goal with an XG, and I know people hate talking about XG and that, but the XG reported in nearly 4.3 goals last night, and a couple of bad misses by strikers, but out of the nearly 30 shots in goal, very few were our strikers. You know, we talk about Kasama's end product needs to be better, 100% does, but our strikers are far too deep. They need to be playing on the line. They need to be making that run in behind and screaming and demanding it. Kasama or Moore or Ant-Man or Curtis or whoever's playing out wide, be it Barami, be it Asgard, our strikers need to be on the front foot, demanding that ball gets played early, demanding service. We're just not getting the service, and it partly is because our strikers are playing so deep, and that is something Danny Royal needs to solve and solve quickly, because right now we've got £20 million spent across the three strikers, and they've combined not scored the same amount of goals as Tav has scored this season.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a fair point, Ian. I think there'll be a lot of people in that boat. And I think you kind of have to. In terms of what we expect for the rest of this season, the league's probably gone. So you're looking, thinking, right, can we salvage a Scottish Cup win out of this season? And right now, Alan, I think, and I hate saying it because it's a mark of where we are, but I reckon the way this season's going, I think you would take finishing second and winning the Scottish Cup, and you would run, personally, if we could, because that would be a vast improvement on the current set of affairs where we're sitting quite a distance away in third.
Yeah, it's certainly better than where we are right now. It's certainly would get some silverware back on board, but we need to fill the club with mentalities that we chase that league for all that we are worth until it's mathematically impossible. There's far too many people at the club, and there was a lot of anger in that main stand above the tunnel where I was last night at the end of the game. There was a lot of anger from fans towards other fans who were applauding the players coming off the park, and I think it's just too common. Too many people accepting. We done well to draw and get that draw. The players deserve to stick walking off that park. Yes, listen, they're proving hard to beat. You know, they're easy to play against, but they're hard to beat because we've lost one game this season in the league. You know, there's something about the squad that makes him able to scrape through and avoid defeats, but this isn't good enough what we're seeing for that team, and too many people are almost getting immune to how bad it's been and just accepting it and thinking we'll just need to wait another year or another 2 years to get another 2 summer windows and improve it. I think, you know, it doesn't take a massive amount to go and turn it around. Go back to when Walter came back. When made, I think his first 3 signings were Ugo Ehag, Davy Weir and Kevin Thompson. You go and make the right signings quickly, then you build the spine of your team, improves the team around him.
Yeah, absolutely does. That will just about do us. Before I do wrap up, Alan, there was a question that was popped in early doors for yourself. That was starred from Paul, asking you quite simply, did you see the Scotland women's team goals?
I certainly saw Kirsty Howitt's 2 goals. You know, obviously a big part of the Rangers women's team for a long time until she departed in the summer. And she got her first 2 goals for Scotland. But I partly started that not only to reply to Paul, but also to point out that Martin did say that tomorrow night's Rabble will be a World Cup special after the World Cup draw is complete. So, you know, I thought it would be a nice wee segue into promoting that.
Yeah, happy days. Yes, so as Alan has mentioned, and somebody asked it as well in the comments, there was a JDP Navy, newly minted member, JDP Navy, I should say, asked, is the World Cup draw tonight? No, so the World Cup draw is tomorrow from 5 o'clock. Now, you may have noticed that I said 5 o'clock there, which is, yes, the same time that Live at 5 is on the Rabble. So that means that tomorrow's Live at 5 will be a World Cup draw special. Wilf will be in the hosting chair for that alongside Ash, I believe. So, yes, we made sure for the World Cup draw that we gave you the best possible, because you know Wilf is infamously die-hard Tartan Army Scottish fan, you know, all the way through. So we
He
thought
absolutely loves international football.
he absolutely loves his international football. So we thought that's the guy to host it. But no, it will be a World Cup draw special. So yeah, by all means, make sure you tune in to us to follow along with that and see who Scotland end up getting out of the hat. Who knows? We might end up getting England. Wouldn't that be something? Thank you very much indeed, Dylan. Ian, Dylan, rather, I appreciate that. In terms of tonight, as I said earlier, we are back. I say we, I'm not. The guys are back live at 7:30 p.m. Martin, Wilf, and Willie Irvin will be here with you. So make sure you tune in and join them. They'll go more in depth on the game last night because there was some other questions being asked, and I promise you that they will go more in depth. That is available on public YouTube, that show as well. So not to worry. If you haven't already, please be sure to give us a like and a subscribe. It costs you nothing. You'll be glad to know that part is free. As you can see in the ticker going along there below us, you can also become a member for as little as $1.99 a month and get access to loads of extra content, including full match day coverage with a build-up, watch-along, half-time analysis, which is just brand spanking new, by the way, and a full-time reaction to boot. All of that and so many more shows that you'll get and extra content for your $1.99. Alan, thanks very much for joining me this evening. And thanks to everyone who's joined us in the comments. And we will see you very, very soon.